Order.
Good afternoon, members. Welcome to this Standing Finance Committee meeting. And in accordance with Standing Order 82, 6, and 87, this meeting of the Standing Finance Committee was convened to consider proposals for the variation of appropriation for the fiscal year 2016. Members are just reminded that in accordance with Standing Order 45-1, the speaking time in the Standing Finance Committee shall not exceed 5 minutes on each intervention. The procedure shall be as follows. The proposals for decreases will be considered prior to the proposals for increases. The head and the amount to be decreased or increased will be announced. I will then propose the question that the head be decreased or increased. After that, a debate may take place on that question, during which any member may seek clarification from the relevant minister. Once this is concluded, I will then put the question that the sum to be decreased or increased be approved. This procedure will be repeated for each head. I therefore now will invite us to consider the proposals for the decreased and increase of appropriation for the fiscal year 2016. Honourable members, we shall now consider the proposals for decreases for fiscal year 2016. And the first head we have is Head 26, Ministry of Education, 413,333,000. Honourable members, the question is that the 2016 appropriation for Head 26, Ministry of Education, be varied by a decrease in the sum of $413,233,000. I now invite members who wish to seek clarification. Member for Superior.
Thank you very much, Honourable Madam Speaker, Madam Chair. I note that a total of 413.2 million is the decrease being sought. I note from the finance note that was presented to us that money is to go to two other heads. Ministry of Labour with respect to a sub-item on-the-job training, and to the Ministry of Planning with respect to a sub-item for the Institute of Marine Affairs. However, when I look at the draft estimates of expenditure, I note that 374 million was the amount appropriated by Budget 2016 for OJT. That entire sum has now gone to from education to OJT. However, the additional monies being asked to be transferred here is to the Ministry of Planning is in fact 39.3 Ministry of Planning. For the Institute of Marine Affairs, yes, 33.048. Madam, I know you're asking us to do with increases and decreases separately, but they are in some ways interlinked. Because what is happening here, when you add the amounts coming out of the IMA and you add the amounts coming out of the OJT, you're getting 413 million. But under the IMA, there's only 33, yet 39 is being increased there, and I would like an explanation as to why. Where is that extra 6 million coming from? And from which projects and so on?
We're dealing with decreases first.
my understanding of the procedure outlined by the Honourable Speaker was that we will deal with decreases first. That's an increase that you're talking about.
But your finance note, Honourable Member, indicates where the money is going to, and maths just doesn't add up. The money is being taken out of the Ministry of Education, being sent off to two other ministries, that is Ministry of Labour, OJT, 374 plus million, Ministry of Planning, the Institute of Marine Affairs, the 39 million, the numbers are
Madam
not
Speaker,
adding
I'm
up.
in your hands. If you want to go the way the Honourable Member wants to go, deal with both, no problem.
Honourable Member for Superior, I would ask the Minister of Finance to note the point, because under increases, therefore, I guess the question will be from where would that additional $6 million, according to your maths, will come from.
But then when I get to that, when I get to, for example, the increase for the Ministry of Labour, and then you confine us to only asking about the Ministry of Labour, and then when I get to Ministry of Planning, which is the other part of the MOE, Ministry of Education, how am I going to ever be able to link the two to show that the maths is, I'm asking, does not appear to be adding up? How will I ever be able to ask that if you confine it to just the one head? Because the things are distinctly interrelated. I mean, what we are doing here, we're just taking out of one ministry, placing it in another. We are not creating any new projects, any new money. It's coming out of the portfolio realignments and so on. And they are inextricably linked. So when I get to planning, Madam, with your leave, of course, subject to your ruling, when I get to Labour, where the money is now being increased for OJT, taken and put there as OJT increases, and then for planning, how do I link to show it's not adding up? That the amounts coming out of education is not adding up to the amounts being now transferred. And therefore, and nowhere else in the finance note does it tell us where the 6 million is coming from.
Honourable Member, Minister of Finance, I think the question would have to be answered in any event, so that I would suggest to properly get it out of the way. Is it that you are not in a position to answer it at all?
Well, I'd like to get the question framed properly first, Madam Speaker. If the member for Superior could frame a proper question, I'll answer it. What is the question?
The question is that the total being transferred from Head 26, Ministry of Education, is, as indicated in your finance note, a total of $413.233 million. This is on page 3 of the finance note that was shared with us for this meeting. Thereafter, your finance note tells us that this money coming from the Ministry of Education is coming from two areas. One is coming from OJT, and if we look at your appropriations budget 2016, you will see that 374 million was for the OJT. Your finance note tells us that the $374 million is going to the Ministry of Labour for OJT, so that's out of the way. Your finance note further tells us that out of the Ministry of Education, the Institute of Marine Affairs has been transferred by the portfolio reassignment, realignment, has been transferred from Education to the Ministry of Planning. When you look at the allocation in the draft estimates of recurrent expenditure, and I could point to the pages if you wish, the IMA, page 206, sub-item 02, from the Ministry of Education, it is 33.04 million. Yet, in your finance note, you're saying that the Ministry of Planning will be gaining the sum of 39.233. There's a discrepancy or variance of about $6 million. So where is it coming from? From which projects it is being taken to go into these two areas, that extra 6 million?
All right, well, firstly, your mathematics are all wrong, but I will explain.
Sure.
The on-the-job training program, the allocation in the Ministry of Education that is being transferred to the Ministry of Labour and Small Enterprise Development is $374 million.
Agree.
So the OJT allocation is $374 million. The Institute of Marine Affairs, the allocation for that which is currently in the Ministry of Education, is being transferred to the Ministry of Planning and Development because the responsibility for the
Sure.
Institute of Marine Affairs is being transferred to Planning and Development. And what you are not considering, because you're operating on the false assumption that we're dealing only with recurrent expenditure, is that $10 million is also being transferred from the development program of the Institute of Marine Affairs for a number of things, including a marine research field station, construction of a building for the Institute of Marine Affairs, and so on. So the error being made is that you're not taking into account $10 million in the development program, which is also being transferred. And that is why there's an apparent discrepancy, which is really not a discrepancy.
Certainly, but you're saying $10 million, and be that as it may, which is not reflected in your documents, but would have been in this allocation. I am seeing a discrepancy of $6 million. The 33 as versus the 39.
The figures
Ministry of Planning is receiving.
The figures I have,
39.
$374 million for OJT.
Yes, we agreed with OJT. We're agreeing with the OJT.
I have a OGT movement 374, IMA movement 29,233,000, and DP of 10 million. That's what I have. The figures add up.
But it's not 29 and 10, sir, but if that is your answer, it is 33 in your document, it is 39.
Where's the 33 in the document,
The 33 is what is allocated here in the draft estimates of expenditure.
In this document. This is what is before us, not
yes,
that.
sir, that is what is before us. But the allocation that you're lifting out of the IMA is coming out of your allocation in budget 2016. It's not coming from out of the sky, it's not new money. In fact, there is no new money in any of this.
Madam Speaker, through you,
Chairman.
Madam Chairman, still the Speaker, through you, what the Honourable Member does not realize is that we're in April.
Yes.
The IME did not come to an end on the 30th of September 2015. Sure. It has been in existence for the last 6 months. It has been expending money for salaries, for wages, for goods and services, for electricity, for water, etc. And therefore, if you look at the allocation, Madam Chairman, I'm answering the question. If you look at the allocation in the estimates of expenditure, which are for the whole 12 months of fiscal 2015 for the IMA, you will make an error, because the IMA has been spending money for the last 6 months, because it has been operating. It is in existence. And this is why the numbers are 374, 29, and 10. The maths are correct. The error you're making is you are not considering the fact that the IMA has been operating, and this will apply to everything here, before we get into an argument over everything. Programs that have been operating for the last 6 months in a ministry, the allocation will be reducing because they have been in existence. Okay? I hope that explains everything.
Through you, Madam Chair, with the greatest of respect, it is the exact $374 million allocated in October, appropriated by the finance bill, the appropriations bill. That is the exact 374 you are now transferring to the OJT. Exactly. So if you're saying expenditures, and in fact that's the other question when we get there, how much has been expended, how much has been committed for all these transfers? That's another question. Then when you come to the IMA, which is the one I'm asking about, with respect to the IMA, you're saying the monies would be less, but in fact you're appropriating more. You're appropriating 39, when the allocation in here was the 33.
Madam Speaker,
so it is not that monies were expended.
I've said twice already that the Honourable Member is taking no account of the development program of capital expenditure and is only looking at estimates of recurrent expenditure.
You said it was 10 billion.
I don't know how better to explain that. The recurrent estimates will not have capital expenditure in them. And the Honourable Member knows that. She was a prime minister after all.
Certainly.
No,
33 million
Chair.
was recurrent. You're saying 10 was development.
Yes.
That will give you 43 million, but you are not you are not transferring that. With the greatest of respect. With the greatest of respect, sir. The maths is not adding up.
No, I was just saying, given what the Minister of Finance is saying here, where is the documentation which
Finance.
allows us to see clearly
That's right. There's nowhere near.
that 29 million is coming from recurrent and 10 from development?
29 is not coming from recurrent. It is 53.
Honorable Minister of Finance, maybe if you say it one more time, one may grasp what is trying to be communicated.
Madam Chairman, the Ministry of Education is being decreased by 413,233,000, and the Ministry of Labour is being increased by 374 million, and the Ministry of Planning and Development is being increased by 39,233,000.
Madam Speaker, with respect to the, thank you, with respect to the decrease from the Ministry of Education, which is going from OJT Education to OJT in the Ministry of Labour, would the Minister kindly tell us how much out of that has been expended in the past 6 months? How many persons have been employed and paid in the OJT? And if not expended, how much is committed to date?
I can't answer that now. I will take note of the question and I'll answer it in the earliest
Yes, sir,
possible
will be
time.
answered throughout the day. Further then, if you're taking notes, would you kindly let us know what are your policy proposals for expenditure, this expenditure of 374 million in fiscal 2016?
What?
The same
Madam Chairman,
374, the details.
You would want to take that on the increase?
Certainly, ma'am, we can take it there.
what
Thank
is
you.
the question?
I will withdraw that question and put it as Madam Chair has indicated. Yes, it's how many people, where, when, how.
Madam
You know
Speaker,
that.
let me just
ma'am.
make it clear. Let me just make it clear.
Honorable Member, that question would be
withdrawn.
taken on the increases.
Thank you.
On the other side.
Minister of Health.
If you say
Therefore, honorable members, the question is that the 2016 appropriation for Head 26, Ministry of Education, be varied by a decrease in the sum of $413,233,000. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. Head 26, Ministry of Education, has been varied by a decrease in the sum of $413,233,000. We move on to Head 28, Ministry of Health. Head 28, Ministry of Health, $6 million. Honorable members, the question is that the 2016 appropriation for Head 28, Ministry of Health, be varied by a decrease in the sum of $6 million. I now invite questions on this. Member for Superior.
Thank you, Madam. I would be, through you, Madam Chair, ask the Honourable Minister to indicate which line items are being transferred to the ministry, being moved out, the decrease, where the decrease is coming from. That is to say, it is for the HIV program, but he would kindly point us, monies allocated in budget 2016 in October, which of those line items on the Head 28 are being decreased
Honorable Minister of Health.
by the $6 million.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Chair, under Head 28, the line items are 04, current transfers and subsidies, 009, other transfers, 08, response to HIV/AIDS. Under the development program.
And that is $2 million, okay?
Yes.
Yes? Go ahead.
Yes. Under the development program, line item 09, development program, 004, social infrastructure, 14, social community services, and C, welfare services, 086, HIV/AIDS, social marketing.
2 million also?
No, ma'am.
How much is
That
it?
is $4 million.
$4 million.
So 4 and 2, 6.
Thank you, Honourable, through you, Madam. Thank you, Honourable Minister. I I know that there was another allocation in Budget 2016 in that appropriation, by data appropriations in October, of another $2 million under same transfers at page 219, sub-item 01, Regional Health Authorities Community HIV Program, $2 million. Is that going to stay then in the Ministry of Health?
I am advised that that is so.
Thank you very much. Through you again, Madam Chair. How much out of this money has been expended by the Ministry of Health in the past 6 months? 6 million.
Under the recurrent expenditure to date, $906,466.
I'm sorry, please.
Sorry, $906,466. Under the development program, $441,925.
And through you again, Madam Chair, with the Honourable Minister. And Honourable Minister, you are very well prepped. I see you must thank your Permanent Secretary. You have the answers really in place. Would you be kind enough to tell us the amounts expended thus far out of your $6 million? Would you be able to tell us exactly what kinds of programs, initiatives were carried out?
Member, I think I just did.
9 and 4?
Yes.
1.3?
I think, yeah, approximately 1.3, 1.4. Yeah. Yes.
Can you identify projects under HIV/AIDS social marketing, response to HIV/AIDS, the kinds of initiatives that this 1.3 would have cost?
What was expended already? Just
Yes, expended.
okay. Sorry. Good. Under the recurrent UE workshop, $77,206. Purchase of HIV kits, $827,520. Accommodation and meals Tobago for the director tender meeting, $1,740. Under the development program, World AIDS Day, $177,653. Workshops, seminars, $29,355. Advertising, $33,917. UE workshop, $210,000. And some stipends were also paid. $201,000, sorry. Let me just repeat the last one. UE workshop, $201,000.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. And this has already been expended. Is there any amount committed to date and not yet expended?
Under commitments, Honourable Member, I am seeing no sums committed.
Through you, Madam Chair, I thank the Honourable Minister for a very thorough and comprehensive response.
Thank you.
Honourable members, the question is that the 2016 appropriation for Head 28, Ministry of Health, be varied by a decrease in the sum of $6 million. Those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against say no. I guess the ayes have it. Head 28, Ministry of Health, has been varied by a decrease in the sum of $6 million. Head 61, Ministry of Housing and Urban Development. I just give you members time to. Head 61, Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, $16 million. Honourable members, the question is that the 2016 appropriation for Head 61, Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, be varied by a decrease in the sum of $16 million. I now invite questions. Member for Superior.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I see the explanation given in the finance note is that you have realized $16 million in savings, which is what you're decreasing this by. Finance note page, page 3, item paragraph 4. Your finance note says that you have had savings in the sum of $16 million under Ministry of Housing for transfer, and you're transferring this to Parliament, as a result of an administrative oversight in the recording of the loan repayment for construction of Brian Lara Cricket Academy. I would be grateful to you, Madam Chair, to explain what this really means.
Well, it's an error made by the Budgets Division. The loan repayment for the Brian Lara Cricket Academy is the responsibility of the Ministry of Sport. So similar allocation was made under the Ministry of Sport, Head 68.
Duplication.
Yes, duplication.
So therefore, when we are being told about the amount of loans outstanding, we'll have to minus the 16 million, is that so?
I'm sorry?
If you had a duplication of the loan repayment, it means that when we are given these totals of loans that have to be paid, the 60 million was an administrative oversight.
It was an administrative oversight, yes.
Should therefore be excluded.
Yes.
It is in fact a savings.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister.
Approach East.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. My question became smaller now. Given the explanation of the Honourable Minister and the fact that UDCOT is involved in the Brian Lara Cricket Academy, I wanted to ask the question, and whether or not by Friday we can get an answer, as to an update on the sums expended by the government of Trinidad and Tobago on the repayment of all loans for the Brian Lara Cricket Academy. How much have been paid, how much is outstanding, and when would the final payments be made on all loans taken to construct the Brian Lara Cricket Academy?
Honourable Minister, I believe that is asked as information for the debate.
Sure. Yes. Okay.
Honourable members, the question is that the 2016 appropriation for Head 61, Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, be varied by a decrease in the sum of $16 million. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. Head 61, Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, has been varied by a decrease in the sum of $16 million. Honourable Minister and PS Yola relief. Head 68, Ministry of Sport and Youth Affairs. Head 68, Ministry of Sport and Youth Affairs, $10 million. Honourable members, the question is that the 2016 appropriation for Head 68, Ministry of Sport and Youth Affairs, be varied by a decrease in the sum of $10 million. At this stage, I will invite any questions which to be posed by members. Honourable Member for Superior.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I note that the decrease of $10 million refers to monies being transferred because of regional complexes from the are being given to the Ministry of Community Development. So that $10 million is coming out of your items for regional complexes. Would you be kind enough to tell us how many regional complexes we are referring to and where each is located?
I know there are 17 total, and on my top of my head right now, I don't have all the locations. I could give you that in writing,
Okay,
where they're actually located.
And can you give us, again, ma'am, a status update as to each of these complexes?
You could also provide that in writing.
Can you tell us how much has been expended per complex? Well, this might help. Status update, Madam Chair. State of completion or status update, where has it reached? Is it in design phase? It is in
No, they're existing
phase?
facilities.
So
There's
then
no
what is-
construction.
Okay, in terms of scope of works, how far is it along?
No, they're
Or
no.
status update?
They're already there, established.
So they're all completed?
Yes.
Therefore, this money has already been expended?
This.
10 million?
Yeah, this is operational expenses, Madam Chairman. It's operations of the facilities, nothing to do with construction.
Okay. Out of this 10 million, would the Honourable Mr. be kind enough to tell us how much has been expended
4.3
on the
million.
operational costs?
4.3 so far.
And how much is committed thus far?
None.
No commitments.
Honourable Member,
Minister of Finance well knows
You
what
have
we
any-
mean by committed when we speak finance.
any other question?
No, Madam. Thank you very much.
Honourable Members, the question is that the 2016 appropriation for Head 68, Ministry of Sport and Youth Affairs, be varied by a decrease in the sum of $10 million. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. Head 68, Ministry of Sport and Youth Affairs, has been varied by a decrease in the sum of $10 million. I thank the Minister and the PS, you all are relieved. Head 78, Ministry of Social Development and Family Services. Head 78, Ministry of Social Development and Family Services, $114,201,129. Honourable Members, the question is that the 2016 appropriation for Head 78, Ministry of Social Development and Family Services, be varied by a decrease in the sum of $114,201,129. I now invite any questions from members seeking clarification. Member for Superior.
Again, Madam Chair, would the Honourable Minister be kind enough to give us a breakdown? I know in the finance note on page 5, it identifies the matters coming out of social development, namely Gender Affairs Division and Child Development, including children's homes, orphanages, Gender Affairs, Children's Authority, Adoption Board, foster care. Through you, Madam Chair, is it possible for us to get a breakdown of how much is being transferred to each of these agencies and units that have been identified as having been removed from the portfolio of social development and now placed in the Office of the Prime Minister, Gender Affairs Division and Child Development? If it cannot be done today.
So 5.5. Madam Chairman, on the gender affairs, on the personal expenditure, the total is $6,208,000 and an additional $372,216. Under goods and services, general administration, it's $8,925,220 and an additional $1,822,955.
I thank the Honourable Member for her response. Would the Honourable Minister be able to tell us the breakdown with respect to the children's homes, St. Michael's Boys, St. Jude's, the St. Dominic's, the St. Mary's, that is now being transferred? We know what the total is, Honourable Minister, and you have given gender affairs, but you have given us in your finance note the items, the units and the areas being reassigned. How much is being assigned to each of these? Now, if we had the draft estimates, they would have been listed in there. So how much, if it cannot be done today, in time for the debate?
Okay. In terms of the St. Mary's Children's Home, we're looking at $12,587,200. St. Dominic's Children's Home, $11,333,334. Gender. They need to give that. Right. And then St. Michael's Home, we are looking at $9,370,000. And for St. Jude's, $7,904,608.
The Children's Authority, Madam, how much is being transferred?
in terms of the Children's Authority, we are looking at $30 million.
Out of that 30 million, which was allocated and appropriated in October, how much has been expended and for what purpose?
Madam Chair, we would not be able to provide that at this point in time. We will provide it subsequently.
Thank you. With
Madam,
respect to the...
let me just intervene here, if you don't mind. When the report of this meeting comes to the Parliament, there will be a detailed schedule that will give you all the details that you are seeking, all of these figures.
Well, I thank you very much for that assurance, but we've heard that many times before.
No,
sir.
I'm telling you.
With due respect, right here in Standing Finance Committee. So I prefer that we ask them. I think that is the purpose of the Standing Finance Committee.
Member for Siparia,
it is recorded.
I'm not contradicting. I'm not contradicting you.
Honourable Minister, please allow the member to continue and complete.
I thank you, and I think the Honourable Minister is attempting to answer and is giving the assurances.
All right.
That's so she will do.
Madam
So the
Chairman,
Children's Authority.
I need to say something for the benefit of all members. There's a document called the schedule relating to the variation of estimates, which gives details of every single head, subhead, and sub-item. It, as is the practice, and has been the practice for the last 50 years, when we finish this committee meeting, when the report goes to the Parliament, you will get the schedule with the detailed items.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and we will await the document, but I think it is our right to ask the questions. And should not the answers not be provided today, certainly can be provided. But should we fail to ask those questions and not addressed, then is that we did not ask.
Yes.
What is the purpose of this committee? If a schedule is going to be given to us on
Honourable
Friday,
Member.
what is the purpose of the
Honourable
committee?
Member, please, I would like us to look at it in terms of it's not prohibiting you from asking your question.
I thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Okay.
I thank you. Again, with respect to Children's Authority, which we all know is a very important authority, there were several concerns about staffing and other areas. So I'd be very grateful if you could give us an update on the expenditure and the purpose of that expenditure thus far for the Children's Authority out of the $30 million.
That will be provided.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister.
Honourable members, the question is that the 2016 appropriation for Head 78, Ministry of Social Development and Family Services, be varied by a decrease in the sum of $114,201,129. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. Head 78, Ministry of Social Development and Family Services, has been varied by a decrease in the sum of $114,201,129. I want to thank you, Honourable Minister and Permanent Secretary. Is all right? The total. Honourable members, the question is that the 2016 appropriation be varied by a total decrease in the sum of $559,434,129. Those in favour say aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. The 2016 appropriation has been varied by a total decrease in the sum of $559,434,129. We now turn to the head of increase. Honourable members, we shall now consider the proposals for increase for fiscal year 2016. Head 05, Parliament. Head 05, Parliament, $16 million. Honourable members, the question is that the 2016 appropriation for Head 05, Parliament, be varied by an increase in the sum of $16 million. I now invite questions on this item.
Talk to them, we'll tell you that.
Honourable Honorable members, the question is that the 2016 appropriation for Head 05 Parliament be varied by an increase in the sum of $16 million. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. Head 05 Parliament has been varied by an increase in the sum of $16 million. I thank you, Madam Clerk. Head 13, Office of the Prime Minister. Oh, okay. Head 13, Office of the Prime Minister, $122,661,129. Honorable members, the question is that the 2016 appropriation for Head 13, Office of the Prime Minister, be varied by an increase in the sum of $122,661,129. At this stage, I invite any debate on this item.
Thank you, Madam
Member
Chair.
for Superior.
Madam Chair, the increase of 122.661 million is coming from several places, so I don't know if I'll be permitted to speak to each of these at this time, or if I will have to wait until that ministry's head is called. For example, the 122.661 is coming from Head 62, Community Development. It's coming from Head 28, Ministry of Health. It's coming from Head 78, Ministry of Social Development. So I don't know how to proceed, Madam.
Yeah, Honorable Member, this is on the increases, so that you'll have to speak to them now. You'll have to speak to them now on the new
so I could refer to other heads coming into here?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Chair. From the finance note again, we see that two items have been removed from the Ministry of Community Development and were placed by the legal notice in December by the Gazette last December, were placed under the Office of the Prime Minister. Two initiatives there. One is the Citizens Initiative Fund and the ecclesiastical bodies. Those two items coming out of community development. Now, Madam Chair, it's 1 million in the first instance and 1.5 million in the second instance. Now, I have a difficulty and seek your guidance. Again, I would like to ask what has happened with these two sets of monies for the past 6 months? How many citizens have received any initiatives from that fund? How many ecclesiastical bodies? But it's not under decrease or increase elsewhere. So that is the past, and it would have been under the past Ministry of Community Development that money, 1 million and 1.5, is be taken off. So the question is this then, through you, for guidance. How much has been expended in the past 6 months for these two items? And for what initiatives under the Citizens Initiative Fund and on the ecclesiastical bodies, which ones and how much given thus far? So it will really be from community development.
Okay, that will be given in writing.
Sure. And then the third part of that will now be, with it being transferred into Head 13 OPM, what are the proposals for expenditure in terms of the same Citizens Initiative Fund and ecclesiastical bodies?
Honorable Minister.
So expended, committed, and proposed to be.
You'll get it in writing.
Thank you very much, Madam. Still with Head 13, OPM, from the Ministry of Health. The Honourable Minister of Health gave a very detailed breakdown, comprehensive breakdown of where the monies was coming from and how much had already been expended. So the balance that remains unexpended and uncommitted, if the Honourable Minister will be kind enough to provide us details of the expenditure on the response and social marketing for the balance of fiscal 2016. And government's initiatives coming out of these monies for HIV/AIDS with respect to dealing with what seems to be a rise. The statistics recently reported very high, especially in the age group, the very young age group. I think it might be from age 15 to 25, if I'm not mistaken, but a really high amount. So we'll appreciate the minister's proposals for the further expenditure of the HIV/AIDS money to deal with what you have here as response to HIV/AIDS and social marketing as you proceed for the next half of the fiscal year.
And that will be given in writing, Honourable Minister. Yes.
Thank you, Madam.
Honourable members.
There's still another
sorry.
one again. Still again,
Proceeding, Honourable Member.
coming in as an increase for the OPM, Head 13, coming from Head 78, Ministry of Social Development. The total of 114,201. I think the minister initially had given us the breakdown of the units and agencies as listed on page 5 of the finance note. The question now will be the balance, what you will now have as not expended for these matters. What are your proposals for dealing with all these various institutions? And it picks up again the Children's Authority as well. So that is with respect to the one more.
Yeah.
OPM has been increased, Head 13 OPM being increased from Head 78, Ministry of Social Development, with respect to an item known as, sub-item known as UN International Children Emergency Fund. I think it's only about $96,000 from what was allocated here being transferred. How much already expended? Which children or where? How much out of this funding has been spent on whom and where? It says a Children Emergency Fund, UN Children Emergency Fund, and proposals for the rest of fiscal 2016.
We have a very comprehensive strategic plan, and all the information requested will be supplied to the member in a timely fashion.
I thank you very much through you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Honourable members, the question is that the 2016 appropriation for Head 13, Office of the Prime Minister, be varied by an increase in the sum of $122,661,129. Those in favour say aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. Head 13, Office of the Prime Minister, has been varied by an increase in the sum of $122,661,129. I thank the Honourable Minister and the Permanent Secretary. Head 22, Ministry of National Security. Head 22, Ministry of National Security, $40,000. Honourable members, the question is that the 2016 appropriation for Head 22, Ministry of National Security, be varied by an increase in the sum of $40,000. At this stage, I invite any questions. Member for Superior.
Thank you very much, Madam. I don't know if there are others, but I do have a question. I thank you. This increase in national security is in the sum of $40,000, as you have pointed on, Madam Chair. It is coming from the Head 78, the Ministry of Social Development, and it is respect, as your finance note tells us, or the government's finance note tells us, it is for Emergency Cases Fund Probation Services. The question again is, thus far half the fiscal year has gone, how much has been expended, and for how many emergency cases, probation services? And then for the increase that is coming to you now, your proposals for expending whatever is the balance. So expended, committed, and to be spent.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. There has been no drawdown on this sum thus far.
So there have been no emergency cases from the probation services?
Through you, Madam Chairman, the response is that there has been no drawdown thus far.
And then, as it's an increase, proposals and criteria for the use of the funds now coming into Ministry of National Security, the $40,000.
The criteria, or rather, what I would respond by way of information, is that this is managed internally by the probation services and is meant to cover supplies, resources in respect of server, YTEP, MILAT, and my part. If further specific information is required, it can be conveyed later in written form. However, I can supply, if so required, further details on what the coverage, the particular items that are covered by that funding.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Honourable Minister.
Honourable members, the question is that
That's it? Thank you. He seems surprised it's all over.
Honourable members, the question is that the 2016 appropriation for Head 22, Ministry of National Security, be varied by an increase in the sum of $40,000. Those in favour say aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. Head 22, Ministry of National Security, has been varied by an increase in the sum of $40,000. Thank you, Honourable Minister and the Permanent Secretary. Head 30, Ministry of Labour and Small Enterprise Development. Head 30, Ministry of Labour and Small Enterprise Development, $374 million. Honourable members, the question is that the 2016 appropriation for Head 30, Ministry of Labour and Small Enterprise Development, be varied by an increase in the sum of $374 million. I invite any questions to take place at this time. Member for Oropouche East.
Madam Chair, to the Minister of Labour. This is, of course, moving the OJT program from education to the Ministry of Labour. In a simple way, why do this? And is there a policy contradiction between the OJT program as existing now and what might be the objective of moving it there?
If you can recall, Honourable Member, the OJT was under the Ministry of Labour previously. As a consequence, therefore, this present government holds the view that such a program would be well implemented or better implemented under the Ministry of Labour and Small Enterprise Development.
Yeah. Okay. You believe it would be better suited there. Could I ask, is this also connected in any way to support that would be provided to the over 5,000 dismissed workers in the country in terms of retraining, in terms of accessing jobs and so on?
Honourable Minister.
Sure, Madam Chair, I would be only too glad to facilitate the Honourable Member. As you may be aware, Cabinet approved a 10-point plan for assisting unemployed in the country. The OJT would come in only if such unemployed fall inside the age category of 35 years and under.
Honourable Member for Superior.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Again, the same questions. Of the 374 million, how much has been expended in the first 6 months of fiscal 2016? How much remains outstanding? And what you plan to do with the balance?
Well, Honourable Member for Superior, I'll answer your last question firstly, which is the easier one. We aim to spend the balance just how we spend the earlier ones. The current balance, we have spent so far $182,639,578. Did I forget one of your questions?
I asked you how much you spent, what is the balance, what you plan to do.
Okay.
Thank you for your answer. You've expended $182 million. Can you give an idea of the number of persons who might have been employed under the OJT for whom this $182 million was spent? How many persons?
Most certainly, Honorable Member, the number of trainees in the program to date and its real time as of yesterday, 7,381.
And your proposal for fiscal, the balance of fiscal? The remaining, what is it, 3 minus 1, 2, the balance that you will have now?
Well, the balance would be spent on maintaining these same numbers, and if the budget can accommodate a small expansion, then certainly.
And so these persons then, based on the question from my colleague, these persons would not have been those with loss of jobs. These are already in the system.
Yes.
From October, from appropriations in October.
Absolutely.
Correct to say?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you very much, Madam.
Honorable Member for Chaguanas East.
Will the Minister, through you, be kind enough to indicate, subsequent to the 2016 budget statement, whether part of these monies will be or have been committed, or are people receiving the increased stipends as had been promised?
Honorable Minister.
Actually, Honorable Member for Chaguanas East, my intention, as a matter of fact, it's in draft, a note to the Cabinet requesting that the increase be implemented.
Honorable Member for Chaguanas East.
Madam Chair, permit me, but not for all levels, at least in the first instance, for the first level where those OJTs would be earning $2,500. We are suggesting that the increase be implemented incrementally because of the economic situation. We are looking at the hard-pressed level, which is $2,500 firstly.
Honorable Member for Caroni East.
Yeah. Would the Honorable Minister indicate, from the knowledge of the 5,000 who have unfortunately lost their jobs, how many of those, if by chance you will happen to know, who are under 35 years of age? As you indicated, you may be considering hiring them if they're under 35 on the OJT program.
Honorable Minister.
Yes, Madam Chair, I am not in a position. I am not in a position to convey the information that the Honorable Member is seeking to obtain. The Ministry, through the National Employment Services, have established a register where we hope to capture not only the information you are seeking, but to allow our information to be a little more accurate.
Honorable Member for Chaguanas East.
Thank you, Chairperson. Would the Honorable Minister indicate whether part of that $374 million will be allocated to what was promised in the 2016 budget with respect to the graduate recruitment program as well?
Honorable Minister.
No.
Honorable Members, the question is that the 2016 appropriation for Head 30, Ministry of Labor and Small Enterprise Development be varied by an increase in the sum of $374 million.
Madam Speaker, could I just clarify a point that was brought up earlier, where there was some confusion as to why, in one case, the transfers and the arithmetic does not appear to add up. I'm on that same one, 374. Why in one case there seemed to be a problem with the arithmetic adding up, and whereas in another case the entire allocation has gone? And the explanation is, if you go to the 4th and 5th pages of the document, you would see the date of the Gazette, which tells you when the program was moved. And if these programs, a number of them were moved on the 23rd of September. So they were moved prior to the start of fiscal 2016, which began on the 1st of October. But a number of others were moved on the 4th of December. So they would continue to expend funds in the ministry that they were originally allocated in until the Gazette was published to transfer the allocation to another ministry. In the case of this one, In the case of OJT, this was gazetted on the 23rd of September, so the entire allocation moved to labor from the 1st of October 2016. In the case of the other one that was bothering you, which is the Institute of Marine Affairs, that moved after September, actually moved in December, and that's why some of the allocation would have been expended in the case of the IMA, and all of the allocation would have been transferred in the case of the OJT.
Explain it. I would say the monies were not allocated. They could not have been transferred until they came to Parliament, which is what is happening today. What would have happened happens, as you said, whichever ministry the money was allocated in, that ministry would pay the bills, even though it was being administered in another ministry by alignment of the portfolios. You think for 6 months, OJT people would not have been paid with the monies in
That's not what I said.
No, the minister is saying because of the dates of the Gazette. That is why there are differences.
That is not what I said, Madam Chairman. I'd like an opportunity to clarify.
You'll be allowed an opportunity to clarify.
Not what I said.
Member Superior, have you finished your contribution?
Well, unless the minister wishes to further clarify.
No, are you finished with your contribution? Are you?
At this point, yes, madam.
Honorable Minister of Finance, I'll give you an opportunity to clarify.
Yes, I'll clarify it for the second time. When one looks at the document circulated to all honorable members, including members opposite, and you go in the remarks column on page 4 and page 5, one will see different dates for the gazetting of the transfer of portfolio from one ministry to another. If the gazetting was done before the 1st of October 2015, then the entire allocation would be transferred to another ministry, and therefore there would be no reduction in the expenditure. If, on the other hand, as occurs with the Institute of Marine Affairs, the Gazette was dated 4th of December, then part of the original allocation would have been expended. So when you do the transfer, you transfer less because expenditure has already taken place within that particular item. But in the case of items which were gazetted before the beginning of the fiscal year, the entire allocation has gone. And that is why there is a difference when you do the maths in terms of the increases and the decreases.
I thank him. I thank the honourable member, madam. That is not the position. Indeed, in every one of these, if you check the Gazette, if you check the estimates, 2016, October 2016 appropriation bill, what is being transferred to these ministries, as by the Parliament today, will be passed on, approved today, to be passed in the bill on Friday. These are the allocations, and if you check them, you will see in every case it is identical, except for this $33 and this $39 million. So I thank the Honourable Minister. I am not convinced.
I am sorry. I will have to intervene again. That is not correct. In the case of the Institute of Marine Affairs, the Ministry of Education spent part of the allocation between October 1st and December 4th. So the remainder of the allocation is now being transferred to the Ministry of Planning and Development.
If I were to understand you, does it mean that in the 6 months, all these things here that are being transferred by the bill that will come on Friday and by this committee approved, are you saying that in every one of those cases that the entire amount was not transferred by this? It cannot be transferred, it cannot be allocated unless the Parliament approves it. Whether it was in September, whether it was in December, once it was appropriated under ministry by Parliament, it remains there until Parliament removes it. It doesn't mean that you cannot spend it, but the amount remains in that ministry until Parliament removes it. That's what the Parliament is for.
Madam Chairman, that is not correct. If portfolio responsibility was transferred before the beginning of the fiscal year, the entire appropriation will be transferred. If it was transferred after the beginning of the fiscal year, the balance or remainder will be transferred. That is very simple to understand.
Minister of Finance, could you just, for the record, say what was the date of the fiscal year?
The fiscal year began on the 1st of October. With respect to the appropriation that is causing so much trouble. Page 4, bottom of the page, the Gazette to transfer the Institute of Marine Affairs to planning was published on the 4th of December 2015. That is 2 months and 3 days after the beginning of the fiscal year. And therefore, money was spent during that 2 months and 3 days in the Ministry of Education, and therefore the remaining appropriation is now coming to planning. It's as simple as that. Can't make it more simple.
Thank you very much. Through you again, madam.
You could repeat yourself 100 times, you know.
Should that be the case, then it means that all these appropriations that are going into the Office of the Prime Minister, because that was only created by that same notice in that Gazette in December, then it should be less money, not the same money. If you look at it, it is the same monies allocated budget October 2016. It is not less. So if I were to take your word that it would be less because it went in December, then that is not the case. Madam, I rest my case. I rest my case.
Honorable members, the question is that the 2016 appropriation for Head 30, Ministry of Labour and Small Enterprise Development, be varied by an increase in the sum of $374 million. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. Head 30, Ministry of Labour and Small Enterprise Development, has been varied by an increase in the sum of $374 million. I thank the Honourable Minister and the Permanent Secretary. Head 62, Ministry of Community Development, Culture and the Arts. Head 62, Ministry of Community Development, Culture and the Arts, $7,500,000. Honourable members, the question is that the 2016 appropriation for Head 62, Ministry of Community Development, Culture and the Arts, be varied by an increase in the sum of $7,500,000. At this stage, I'll invite any debate on this item. Honourable members, the question is that the 2016 appropriation for Head 62, Ministry of Community Development, Culture and the Arts, be varied by an increase in the sum of $7,500,000. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. Head 62, Ministry of Community Development, Culture and the Arts, has been varied by an increase in the sum of $7,500,000. I thank the Minister and the Permanent Secretary. Head 67, Ministry of Planning and Development. Head 67, Ministry of Planning and Development, $39,233,000. Honourable members, the question is that the 2016 appropriation for Head 67, Ministry of Planning and Development, be varied by an increase in the sum of $39,233,000. At this stage, I'll invite debate on this question. Honourable members, the question is that the 2016 appropriation for Head 67, Ministry of Planning and Development, be varied by an increase in the sum of $39,233,000. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. Head 67, Ministry of Planning and Development, has been varied by an increase in the sum of $39,233,000. Honourable members, the question is that the 2016 appropriation be varied by a total increase in the sum of $559,434,129. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. The 2016 appropriation has been varied by a total increase in the sum of $559,434,129. I thank the Honorable Minister and the Permanent Secretary. Honorable members, please note that the debate for the adoption of the committee's report will take place on Friday, April 8, 2016 at 1:30 p.m. The meeting of the Standing Finance Committee is now adjourned. Thank you.